Hello, I'm Dr. Anita Eid, and I teach early childhood education at NSU here in Broken Arrow. I want to talk to you about the constructive response that's part of the OSAT. It is the last section of the OSAT. And just a little bit about the format. This is basically an essay. You're going to write several paragraphs about a strategy, basically, and how to implement it. That's all it is. What I tell my students in class is look at it first. This is the last section. Go to the constructed response section the minute you open the OSAT. And they'll give you some junk paper that you can use. Make yourself a little outline. Look at it. Read whatever it is your particular issue is so that it's fresh in your mind. That being said, make yourself a little outline right at the beginning so you have an idea of what's wrong, what you're going to do about it, why it's developmentally appropriate, and how you might assess it. Just make yourself some quick notes on your junk paper that they allow you to have. When you're done with that, don't put anything into the computer. Go back to section 1. Because so many times while you're taking section 1, 2, 3, and 4, you get little hints about things that you can use in the constructed response. So wait until you're done with the other sections and then do the constructed response last. And trust me, some new things will have occurred to you by then, and you won't be so nervous because you already know what it's about. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and we'll go over just a few pointers here to make this easier. Okay, first of all, it's a 300 to 600 word essay. This is basically 2 pages. That's all it is. If you have if you're in Microsoft Word, make sure that you keep track of how many words you're writing. If not, I'm sure the computer will let you know when you've hit 600. But you don't want to get too short because you want to make sure that you really explain your point. Those of you who've been in my classes know when I say give them the exact details and examples. It's always the details and examples that get you if you leave them out. Okay. So first of all, read the exhibit. By exhibit, I mean whatever they're giving you. Sometimes they give you just a test, some test the child has taken, whether it's phonemic awareness or spelling or reading, or sometimes they give you a strategy that they implemented in the classroom, and then whatever assessment piece they did to see whether or not the child understood what was being taught or not. So that's the exhibit, and they can all be different. So carefully read it. That's first. The first thing when you get to that test, look at that exhibit and say, what is it they're needing me to look at? Identify one effective instructional strategy that the teacher included in the lesson. That was one of the things that was posted in the example on the OSAT website. And I took this example straight off that OSAT website that's posted for everyone to look at. So you're going to identify a strategy that that particular teacher used. Make sure you really explain. Pretend that the person reading what you write has no idea of teaching strategies, nothing. So you're going to define that strategy, what it's used for. The next thing you're going to do is explain why this particular strategy that their teacher used was developmentally appropriate for the activity or lesson with respect to grade level and content. This strategy is developmentally appropriate for kindergarten, first grade, 3-year-olds, whatever, because, again, Pretend the reader has no clue what developmentally appropriate practice is for a child that age. Then you're going to identify an area that you see has a problem. What's wrong? What is not successful in this particular piece? If the child may just have a misconception, or the child could be making some serious errors, you'll let us know what's the problem. Now, if you're given an assessment, anything with numbers, total them up and make sure that your score is at 80%. Or if it's not at 80%, then that's not mastery. 80% and up is mastery. So if you have a child that, say they give you a spelling test and, the child got 6 out of 10 right, well, that's a 60%. So that there's definitely a problem with spelling, and then you're going to come up with a strategy to help the child develop better spelling skills. Writing samples, a lot of times they will give you a writing sample to look at, say a 2nd or 3rd grade writing sample, and you're going to look really hard at grammatical structure, sentence. Do they put capitals? Do they put periods and question marks? Are there spaces between the words? And you'll look carefully at spelling errors. Those are usually the biggies when they give you a child's writing sample. And so in this area, again, you're going to write at least a paragraph, a good solid paragraph. This student is having difficulty with. And remember at the beginning, they asked you just to identify one problem. Students may be having many problems. Pick out the one that you consider the most serious if they ask for one. If they ask for 2 problems, then pick out the top 2 problems. Now, when you say this student is having difficulty with spelling, pick any problem, okay, then you're going to have to give evidence. This student is having difficulty with their spelling as evidenced in the writing sample. For example, they spelled, I don't know, the word cow, K-O-W instead of C-O-W. But be specific, give examples. So then in the next paragraph, you're going to describe a developmentally appropriate strategy or an instructional activity you could be doing with a child that would address this problem. First, you describe the strategy. Then you explain what the strategy is intended to do. What is the point of doing it? Then you're going to explain why the strategy is developmentally appropriate for this age or grade. Pretend your reader knows nothing about strategies and developmentally appropriate practice. Make sure you include the word. This strategy is developmentally appropriate for 1st graders, 2nd graders, whatever, because. And next, you're going to give step-by-step instructions for applying the strategy. Again, pretend the reader has no idea. You're going to say, first I will, next I will, then I will, and finally I will. But it's got to be step by step. And last but not least, you want to see if the child learned what you intended them to learn. So you're going to come up with an informal assessment method that the teacher can use to evaluate the student's new level of understanding. Basically, did it work? So now I'm going to have you look at what is actually out there on the web, and we're going to talk about it. This is one exhibit that has been used for the constructed response. The exhibit is a lesson that was taught to children. The learning objective was students will write 3 facts about an animal of their choice using a graphic organizer after listening to an informative text read aloud. It sounds like a good lesson. They do not have an age group in here. My guess is this is probably 1st or 2nd grade. Essential questions. What are 3 interesting facts about your animal, and what makes your animal unique from other animals? So those are the essential questions that you want your students to mull around while they're reading this material. They should give you some lesson vocabulary, and then there's a guided practice activity. Basically, this is just the teacher's lesson plan. This is good information. But this is what we call a distractor, okay? There's nothing for you to get from this. Now, here's what you're going to need to really look at. This is the work sample from that same lesson. Well, here's the graphic organizer the teacher created. Left space on top for them to draw a picture. After listening to the text read aloud with a partner, students will use a graphic organizer to identify 3 interesting facts about their animal. What is the name of your animal? Okay, so my animal's a coyote. What does your animal look like? Coyotes are pretty. Where does your animal live? Coyotes live right here in the woods. What does your animal eat? Coyotes eat a lot. So right here, we can see that this particular response on the graphic organizer, which graphic organizers are a great instructional strategy, but it's not working for this particular child. When it says, what does your animal look like? Coyotes are pretty is an inadequate response because they covered what animals, and specifically coyotes, looked like in the reading material. Coyotes eat a lot does not give us any facts about what coyotes really eat. And coyotes live right here in the woods has some specific information, but my guess is the reading material was more specific than that. So let's look at the sample response. That's also right on the OSAT website, because I really want to point out to you the specific pieces that you need to look at. Okay, so the first piece, the teacher utilized a graphic organizer as an instructional strategy. Remember, instructional strategy is the very first thing here that you're going to look at. You're going to look at the instructional strategy. What instructional strategy did the teacher use? Well, that was her instructional strategy. So that's a graphic organizer. Okay. And then she talked about why graphic organizers are developmentally appropriate for 1st grade students who are just beginning to learn how to do research. And she gave some very specific points about what made it developmentally appropriate. Notice it's 1, 2, and 3, very clear, whole paragraph. Then the next paragraph, this is what's wrong with it. Where is the additional instruction needed? Well, 2 of the students' answers did not include specific facts because we've got the pretty coyotes and they eat a lot. And the 3rd answer, living in the woods, is not real clear either because more factual information was actually available. So she explained what the why additional instruction is needed. Okay, so then we go into, well, what can you do? Here comes your strategy. She starts out with, a quick lesson prior to reteaching would be helpful. She talks about modeling and practicing with the students. And then she talks about how she's going to reteach this lesson. She's going to use the same format for the graphic organizer, but this time she's actually going to have them color code facts in the text. And she's going to have them practice highlighting and color coding facts after listening to the text about different animals native to Oklahoma. She's going to support them the whole time she does this. It's highly specific on what she's going to do. She starts out up here at the beginning with the modeling. She has the graphic organizer. She has a hard copy of the text. She models how to highlight and color code keywords and details. And then she has them come back and do it themselves. So she's modeling, she's having the students independently practice, and then she's supporting their efforts. And at the end, she has an effective informal assessment to see whether or not they have learned how to do this. She's going to provide each student with a hard copy of the same text and have them highlight or color code words that provide answers to the 3 questions on the graphic organizer. The student would then make corrections and additions to their original papers, adding facts acquired through the reteaching process. This way, the teacher can assess whether or not the student has now learned how to identify facts in reading, which is really the whole purpose of the lesson. Notice that there are multiple paragraphs, lots of detail, and I know some of it seems a little repetitive. That's totally okay. Don't worry about being repetitive. Make sure you've got the specific details and examples. And last but not least, so how you say to yourself, well, how am I going to get ready for this? Well, here's what to do. What you really need to work on is review your textbooks, notes, and commit to memory about 10 strategies that you can apply. Think of all the things that you might be given. You might be given something on spelling. You might be given something on sentence structure. You might be given something on phonemic awareness. You might be given something on alphabet. You might be given something on reading comprehension. Think about all the different areas that you covered when you were in your reading classes. And look up various strategies that your book recommends for assistance in each one of those. And there are always some nice strategies that you can implement for every single one of these. One of the books that I highly recommend, and you can buy this used online for not a whole lot of money, is Literacy Assessment and Intervention by Beverly DeVries. Multiple editions are available. It does not make any difference what edition you buy. The strategies will not be significantly different. So get yourself a copy of that if you do not have an available reading strategy textbook. Make sure you've got your strategies memorized. Make sure you know why each one is developmentally appropriate practice. How would you implement each one of them first, next, then, finally? How would you assess whether or not the strategy worked? And last but not least, put it all together, read it over, make sure it's clear, make sure you have specifically answered the questions in your prompt, because all prompts are going to be a little bit different. Look back at your questions and score yourself. Say, did I answer this piece? Did I answer that piece? Was this piece clear? Don't leave anything to the imagination. Not a thing. I wish you all the best on doing your constructed response. If you have any questions about anything in this video or on the PowerPoint, which is also posted, please do not hesitate to contact me. You can reach me at edear@nsuk.edu. Bye.